好了，我们第二场采访马上要开始了，大家做好准备。Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our second press conference today. We are now having DWG here, and this press conference press order is English-speaking media first, then Chinese media, and last is Korean media. So let's begin.
Adele from Millennium for Showmaker. You've just claimed your revenge against G2 Esports and are looking towards a final against top esports or Suning. How liberating was it to go through them? And how important was it since it felt as if G2 was a mental wall you were wishing to overcome on your way to the LCK's first world since 2017?
네, 쇼메이커 선수에게 질문입니다. 지금 막 G2 상대로 복수를 성공하셨는데 이제 TES나 수닝을 결승전에서 만나실 예정입니다. 이번 승리로 어느 정도로 좀 해방감을 느끼셨는지, 그리고 이제 사실은 G2가 좀 멘탈적으로라든지 LCK 자체에게 조금 상성 같은 느낌이 있었고 꼭 극복하고 싶은 그런 벽처럼 다가오는 그런 팀이었는데 오늘 승리가 얼마나 중요했는지, 특히나 이번 승리로 LCK가 3년 만에 다시 결승에 진출했는데 얼마나 중요하게 조금 생각하시고 임하셨는지 궁금합니다.
일단 작년에 복수를 저희 팀에서 잘한 것 같아서 되게 기분 좋고, 그 다음에 이제 G2가 이제 또 LCK 팀들만 만나면 거의 다 이겼어가지고 좀 LCK의 복수도 한 것 같아서 두 배로 기분 좋은 것 같고, 그다음 질문 뭐였죠?
그래가지고 이제 G2가 사실은 그런 조금 멘탈적으로라든지 벽처럼 좀 극복해야 되는 그런 대상으로 존재해 왔는데 그런 만큼 이번 경기를 얼마나 중요하게 생각하시고 임하셨는지, 특히나 이번 승리를 통해서 LCK가 3년 만에 다시 월드 결승에 진출했는데 그런 점을 얼마나 중요하게 좀 생각하고 경기에 임하셨는지.
일단 멘탈적으로는 일단 G2가 되게 좀 저희의 멘탈을 잘 흔드는 팀이어가지고 좀 제 정신을 잘 차리려고 노력을 많이 한 것 같고, 이제 수닝과 TS랑도 이제 하게 될 텐데 그때 이제 하게 될 때도 도움이 많이 된 것 같아요.
So I'm happy that we were able to get our revenge on G2, and also because G2 has been taking down all the LCK teams so far, I'm happy that we also got the revenge of the LCK region itself. So I think it's I feel the double of the joy. And also it's true that G2 is really good at winning the mind game. So today I tried my best to focus up, and I think this will also help us go through Suning or TES.
这个问题是Arda记者问 Showmaker 选手的问题。你们今天成功复仇了 G2， 那么你们接下来的决赛会对上苏宁或者滔博，赢了这场比赛之后，有没有觉得压力稍微减轻了一点？然后 G2 也是一支比较克制 LCK 队伍的这样一支队伍嘛，赢下这场比赛对于你来说有没有很大的重要性？然后你们也是时隔3年再次进入到世界总决赛的决赛，然后为了克服 G2， 就是你们在准备今天的比赛上有没有特别的准备了什么？然后 Showmaker 选手的回答是，因为今天成功复仇了 G2， 所以感觉心情还是比较好。G2 就是对上 LCK 队伍的时候，基本上都是赢下来了，所以我感觉我们也有为 LCK 复仇的这样一种心情。然后G2 很擅长在心态上动摇我们，然后我今天也很努力的打起精神来，不要被他们动摇。我们接下来也会对战到苏宁或者滔博嘛，我感觉这场比赛的胜利会给我们带来很大的帮助。
Victor from my esports for Naguri. With your win today, it's the first time in 3 years that we have an LCK team in World's Final. How do you feel about that, and how has the LCK managed to go back to the season's final game?
너구리 선수에게 질문이고요. 이번 승리를 통해서 LCK가 3년 만에 월드 결승에 다시 진출했습니다. 이 점에 대한 소감은 어떻게 되는지, 그리고 또 LCK가 어떻게 다시 이런 결승 무대에 돌아오게 될 수 있었다고 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
일단 LCK 차원에서도 이렇게 결승에 갔다는 게 저도 되게 좀 자랑스럽게 생각하고 있고 기분이 되게 좋고, 개인적으로도 이제 담원이라는 팀에서 이제 결승 갔다는 것 자체를 너무 좋게 생각하고 있고요. 다음 질문 뭐였죠?
LCK가 어떻게 이제 이렇게 결승 무대로 좀 복귀할 수 있었다고 생각하는지.
저 그동안 좀 지면서 좀 배운 것도 많고, 그리고 담원이라는 팀 자체에도 이제 감독님, 코치님도 되게 좀 뛰어나다고 생각하죠. 저희를 이끌어 주시는 그런 능력 자체가 너무 뛰어나다고 생각해서 그게 제일 크지 않았나 생각합니다.
For the LCK as a whole, I'm really happy and proud of the fact that we made it back to the finals, and also just for the Damwon Gaming, I'm also super happy that we made it to the World's final. And I think while we were losing for the couple of years, I think we have learned a lot. And also in addition to that, for Damwon Gaming, I think we have a great coaching staff, and they are so good at like leading us and giving us some lessons. So we were able to improve a lot, and we made it to the finals.
这个问题是 Victor 记者向 Ocal 选手的提问。你们今天赢下了这场比赛，也是时隔3年重新进入到决赛。请问你现在有什么感想？你认为 LCK 能够重返世界赛舞台的决赛最重要的原因是什么？ Ocal 选手的回答是：今天赢下了这场比赛，进入到决赛，感觉非常的骄傲，心情也非常的好，能够跟 DWG 这支队伍一起进入到决赛，心情非常的好。这段期间我们也是输了很多比赛嘛，感觉我们从输了的这些比赛当中学到了很多东西。最重要的原因还是因为我们的监督还有我们的教练团队，他们的能力都非常的突出，能够带领我们一起取得这么好的结果。
Simon from Inquirer for Canyon, do you want to face Sofom from Suning or Karsa from Top Esports in the final? How do you think you will fare against them?
캐년 선수에게 질문이고요. 수닝의 SOFM 선수를 상대하고 싶으신지, TS의 카사 선수를 상대하고 싶으신지, 그리고 그 두 선수를 상대로 어떤 식으로 좀 경기하실 것 같은지.
일단 저는 두 선수 다 장점이 있다고 생각하는데 제 개인적으로는 소프엠 선수가 더 까다로워서 카사 선수가 더 개인적으로 부담이 없는 것 같고 그다음 질문이 뭐였죠?
두 선수분들 상대로 결승전에서 어떤 모습을 보여주실 것 같은지.
네? 결승전에서 일단 최대한 제 장점 살리면서 팀원들이랑 같이 잘하면 좋을 것 같아요.
I think both players have their own strength, but for me, I think it's more tricky to play up against SOFM. So I think I would feel less pressure playing up against Kartha. And moving into the finals, I will try to utilize my strengths and play well with my teammates.
这个问题是 Simon 记者向Canyon 选手的提问。你在决赛会你在决赛比较想遇到苏宁的 Soften 选手还是 TES 的 Kasa 选手？然后你准备在决赛遇到这两位选手的时候，会准备去怎么打比赛？然后 Canyon 选手的回答是：我认为这两位选手都有各自的优点。我个人是觉得 Soften 选手会更加棘手一点。面对上 Kasa 选手的时候，我个人的负担会更加小一点。那么在决赛舞台对上这两位选手其中一位的时候，我会努力的发挥我自己的优点，然后跟队友一起好好的打好比赛。
Okay, next turn for Chinese media. 中文的媒体可以开始提问。
这里是腾讯体育第一个问题，想提问 Showmaker 选手，就是比赛中有看到你有亮一些 LPL 的对标，就是这个是出于什么原因？以及就是对于明天的半决赛，你有怎样的预测？你觉得谁会是你的决赛对手？
텐센트 e스포츠 기자님께서 쇼메이커 선수한테 드린 질문인데요. 오늘 경기 내에서 LPL 팀들의 인장을 올린 이유는 무엇인지 그리고 오늘 경기에 대한 예측 부탁드립니다.
일단 제가 18년도 IG랑 19년도 FPX 뛰었는데 두 팀 다 G2를 이겼던 팀들이어가지고 그렇게 뛰었습니다. 진짜 죄송한데 다음 질문 뭐죠? 진짜 제가 장난친 게 아니라.
내일 경기에 대한 예측 한마디 부탁드립니다.
일단 수닝이랑 TS 정말 다 두 팀 잘한다고 생각해서 그날 컨디션이 좋은 팀이 올라올 것 같습니다.
我今天在比赛里面亮的是18 IG 的图标，还有19 FunPlus 的图标，这两支队伍都是曾经赢下过 G2 的队伍，所以我就这样亮了他们的图标。然后我觉得明天的比赛，苏宁跟滔博都是非常强劲的队伍，所以状态更好的一支队伍会进入到决赛。
This question was over to Showmaker, and why were you flashing the LPL team's emotes, and who do you think will make the finals? And his answer was he used the 2018 IG and 2019 FPX emotes because those two teams were the teams that took down G2. And also for the semifinals prediction, I think both Suning and TES are super strong. So I think the team that feels better on the match day will be able to get the dub.
你好，这里是 NJ，想要问到教练，今天第2场比赛是 DWG 战队这赛季首次在蓝色方输比赛，你认为当前版本红色方与蓝色方哪边更有优势呢？为什么？
NGA 기자님께서 제파 감독님에게 드린 질문인데요. 오늘 두 번째 경기에서 담원이 서머 시즌 이후 처음으로 브루 진영에서 졌습니다. 현 메타에서 브루 진영과 레드 진영 어느 쪽이 더 유리한지 궁금합니다.
지금으로 봐서는 어디 한 진영이 엄청나게 유리하다라는 건 챔피언 폭에 따라 결정되는 것 같아서 저희는 그래서 이번에 G2를 상대할 때는 레드 팀이 유리할 것 같다고 생각해서 레드 팀을 골랐고 이제 결승 같은 경우는 어디가 올라오느냐에 따라서 또 진영을 바꿀 수 있기 때문에 그냥 그때 저희 챔피언 폭이랑 상대 팀 챔피언 폭 따라서 어느 정도 효율 짤 수 있는지에 따라 그냥 다른 것 같습니다.
现在来说，比起哪一个阵型更加有利，其实我觉得更多的是英雄池方面的问题。对上 G2，我觉得我们的选手的英雄池在红色方可能会比较有利，所以就选择了红色方。那么在决赛的时候，会根据决赛是哪一支对手，然后根据对手的英雄池和我们的英雄池进行就是一个考虑，然后到时会决定哪一个方更加有利一点。
This question was over to Zepha, and so this was the first game that Damwon lost on the blue side since summer split, and you started off in the red side this time around. So which side is in favor in the current meta? And his answer was that actually in the current meta, I don't think that one specific side has a huge edge over the other. I think actually the champion pool decides the better sides. And for the G2 series today, we thought that red side will be having a huge edge over G2. So I think moving on to the finals, it's going to be a little bit different depending on the opponent that we are going to face up against. So I want to conclude that I think we all have to consider both our champion pool and the opponent's champion pool to choose which side will be in favor of.
这里是长友宝，想请问一下教练，有人说你们打架跟运营都能够完美的结合，请问你觉得这种版本，你觉得这种结合是最贴近版本的打法吗？
장여bảo 기자님께서 제파 감독님께 드린 질문인데요. 담원이 사업과 운영 둘 다 잘한다는 평이 많았는데 그 감독님 생각하실 때 이런 플레이 스타일이 현 메타랑 가장 잘 맞는 플레이 스타일이신가요?
다시 한 번만 말씀해 주세요.
네, 담원이 정말 사업과 운영 둘 다 잘하는 평이 많았는데 그 감독님 생각하실 때 이런 플레이 스타일이 현 메타랑 가장 잘 맞는 플레이 스타일이신가요?
사실 롤은 어떤 메타 간의 싸움과 운영 둘 다 잘해야 되는 메타라고 생각합니다.
我认为不管在什么样的版本，每个队伍都必须要同时做好打架跟运营这两点。
This question was over to Zephyr. Damwon Gaming, a lot of people say Damwon Gaming is good at both team fighting and also the macro. So as a head coach, do you think that it's the most ideal playstyle in the given meta? And he answered, in terms of League of Legends, I think team fight ability and macro has always been super important.
好，那咱们还大概有2个问题的时间。
你好，这边是11大咖，想采访到 Ghost 选手。Ghost 选手作为 DWG 新赛季的一个新援，也是与队伍融合的非常好，所以想请问一下，不是与队伍融合的非常好，现在也帮助了队伍打进了今年世界赛的决赛，所以想问一下 Ghost 的选手融入到 DWG 这支队伍里的一个，就是为什么可以融合的那么快？
LOL 다카 기자님께서 고스트 선수한테 드린 질문인데요. 이번 시즌에 새로 합류하게 된 멤버로서 정말 눈에 띈 활약을 보여주면서 팀이 정말 좋은 성적 거둘 수 있게 큰 도움이 되셨어요. 그 혹시 팀이랑 호흡을 이렇게 잘 맞추실 수 있는 그런 이유는 무엇인가요?
일단 팀원들부터가 너무 훌륭한 팀원들이라서 딱히 제가 뭐 부담을 느끼거나 뭐 이렇게 해야 되는 것도 없고, 그리고 감독 코치님들이 이제 잘 이끌어 주시기 때문에 가능한 거라고 생각합니다.
因为我们 DWG 的队员本来就是非常优秀的选手，所以我也并没有感受到太大的负担，或者我必须要去做一些什么的这种压力。然后还有就是我们的监督，还有我们的教练团队都做得非常好，一直能够很好的带领我们走到今天。
This question was over to Ghost, and you were the new player coming into 2020 split, joining Damwon Gaming, and also you showcased an outstanding performance so far, and you made a huge contribution to what Damwon Gaming has accomplished. So how are you able to gel with the team so well? And his answer was that, well, Damwon Gaming had great players already, so I didn't feel any pressure joining this team and performing with the squad. And also, in addition to that, I think our coaching staff was doing a great job leading us. So everything that they were really good at leading the whole player. So I was able to gel with the team really well.
你好，这里是 NGA， 想要问到选手 Canyon。DWG 即将在决赛对上 LPL 的队伍，这是时隔6年中韩再次决赛会面。作为队伍内最年轻的选手，你自己即将亲手创造历史的感觉是怎样的？
NGA 기자님께서 캐니언 선수한테 드린 질문인데요. 담원이 결승전에서 LPL 팀과 붙게 됐는데 6년 만에 한중전이에요. 제일 막내 선수로서 새로운 역사를 직접 만드는 그런 느낌이 어떠세요?
한중전이 6년 만인 건 저 처음 알았는데 일단 오랜만에 저희 LCK가 결승 와서 기쁘고 결승 올라왔으니까 저희가 꼭 이겨서 우승해보고 싶어요.
我也是现在才知道，这是时隔6年的中韩决赛大战。因为这 LCK， 我们能代表 LCK 进入到决赛，我现在的心情也是非常好嘛。既然能够进入到决赛，我希望能够尽自己最大的努力赢下来，拿到冠军。
This question was over to Kenyan, and Damwon Gaming will be face off LPL team in the finals, and this is the Korea versus China matchup after 6 years. So, as the youngest member of your team, how are you feeling to write down a new history with your own hands? And he answered, "Well, I actually didn't know that it's been 6 years, but I'm happy that LCK came back to the World's finals after a while. And now that we made it to the finals, I hope we can win and lift up the trophy."
10 minutes for English media. Korean media, sorry.
포모스의 켄진님의 질문입니다. 베릴 선수 4세트에서 칼날비 브라움을 꺼냈는데 그 이유를 설명해 주실 수 있나요? 그리고 3세트 미키엑스 선수의 판테온 플레이를 평가해 주실 수 있다면 부탁드립니다.
칼날비 브라움한 이유는 지배를 들고 싶은데 칼날비가 아니면 못 들더라고요. 그래서 그 끈질긴 사냥꾼을 들고 싶었는데 들 수 있는 방법이 칼날비를 든 것이 없어서 칼날비를 들었고 3세트 때 미키엑스 선수 판테온은 원래 판테온이나 챔피언이 초반에 이득을 많이 못 보면 좀 많이 썩는 챔피언인데 연달아 더 죽어서 좀 할 게 없었는데 그래도 저는 잘 했다고 생각해요. 그 처음에 되게 그 다이브 했을 때 죽지만 않았어도 아마 저희가 좀 많이 불리했을 것 같아요.
So for the hail, the question was over to Burl, and you took Hail of Blades on Brown in game number 4. So what was the reason behind that pick? And also, could you rate the performance of Mickey X on Pantheon? And he answered, for the Hail of Blades, well, I wanted to take the domination rune, so Hail of Blades was the only choice that I can take on Brown, and also because I wanted to take the relentless hunter, so that was a reason why I was going for the domination rune. And for Mickey X's performance on Pantheon, I think he did fairly well, but Pantheon is a champion that needs to get a lot of points in the early game and needs to get ahead in the very early phase of the game, or it's gonna rote moving on to the late game. But he was dying for a couple of times and consecutively in the middle of the game, so there was nothing for him to do on that champion. But I think he did a decent work, but I think it's mainly because he died in the turret dive. So if he actually didn't die there, maybe the game could have been on the favor of G2.
这个问题是 Foremost 的 Kenji 记者向 Bjerg 选手的提问。想问一下，你第4局带从刃布隆的理由是什么？然后，你怎么评价第3局 Mickey 选手的潘森的发挥？他的回答是，因为我想带主宰系的符文，然后从刃是唯一可以搭配布隆的一个选择，所以我也想，所以我就选择了从刃布隆。然后至于第3局Mickey 选手潘森的发挥，我认为潘森这个英雄一定要在初期取得优势，不然的话他到后期就是比较没有声音的一个英雄嘛。但是 Mickey 选手的潘森在前期连续死了几次之后，到后面也不能发挥出什么样的作用，但是我认为他还是打得非常好的。要是他第一波越塔没有死掉的话，感觉我们队线还是比较劣势的。
코라이즌의 애슐리강님 질문입니다. 고스트 선수에게 질문인데요. 올해가 첫 월드 진출인데 이렇게 좋은 개인 그리고 또 팀적 경기력으로 롤드컵 결승까지 진출하신 소감이 남다르실 것 같습니다. 여기까지 오게 된 감상을 듣고 싶습니다.
여기까지 오게 된 시간이 이제 저희 다른 팀원들과는 다르게 좀 많이 길었는데 이제 여기 이제 처음으로 온 만큼 이제 결승전에 올라가서 너무 기쁘고 꼭 다시 우승해서 LCK가 가장 강한 리그로 만들고 싶어요.
This question was over to Ghost. This is your first Worlds run, and you have made it to the finals. So you have been showcasing a really outstanding performance individually and also as a team. So how are you feeling moving up this far? And he answered, well, it took me a lot longer compared to other members on our team. So now that I've made it to the finals in my first Worlds journey, I wish we can win the finals and make LCK the strongest region again.
这个问题是 Horizon 的 Ashley 记者向 Ghost 选手的提问。这是你的第一次世界赛，能够跟队员们一起走到现在，然后打进决赛的感想是怎么样的呢 ？Ghost 选手的回答是：因为我来到这里，比起其他队员花费了更长的时间。在我第一次世界赛就能打进决赛，我现在的心情非常好。然后打进决赛，我希望能够我希望能够拿下冠军，想证明想就是把 LCK 变成最强的一个赛区。
국민일보 윤민섭 기자님이 쇼메이커 선수에게 질문하셨습니다. 캡스 선수가 맵을 넓게 쓰는 플레이를 선호하는데 캡스의 로밍에 대처하기 위해 어떤 플레이를 준비해 오셨는지 궁금합니다.
캡스 선수가 맵을 넓게 쓰는 걸 미리 알아서 일단 최대한 캡스 선수가 사라지면 좀 빨리 빡세게 콜을 했던 것 같고, 그 다음에 챔피언도 이제 저도 최대한 그 캡스 선수의 템포에 맞출 수 있는 챔피언 위주로 했던 것 같아요.
This question was over to Showmaker, and Caps is a player that utilizes the entire map and roams around the map. So what kind of strategy did you prepare in order to answer his playstyle? And Showmaker answered, well, in order to answer to his roaming playstyle, I also tried my best to make a lot of calls as soon as possible whenever he was missing. And in terms of the champion picks, I also tried to go with the champions that can match the champions that Caps picked and match his tempo.
这是国民日报的记者向Showmaker 选手的提问。Caps 选手是一位非常擅长于打支援这样的一位选手。那么为了应对他这种游走的打法，你有没有做什么特别的准备呢？Showmaker 选手的回答是：我也知道 Caps 选手非常擅长于打这种支援游走的风格。然后一旦他从中路消失的时候，我就会拼命的想把这个信息告诉给我们的队员。然后在英雄选择方面，我也是尽量选择一些能够跟得上 Caps 选手节奏的一些英雄。
네, 포모스 켄지님의 질문이고요. 제파 감독님께 질문입니다. 19년도부터 계속된 LCK 팀의 G2 잔혹사를 끊어낸 소감이 어떻게 되나요?
사실 G2는 되게 뱀픽적인 부분이든 플레이적인 부분이든 되게 준비를 잘한 팀이라고 생각하고, 그런 부분에서 이제 그냥 이제 다른 리그 타 리그랑 타 리그 팀들과 비교했을 때도 되게 경쟁력 있는 팀이고, 이제 대진에서 이제 한국 팀 만나서 이겼던 그런 것도 좀 있는데, 이번에는 저희가 되게 그 실력적인 부분에서 다 앞서면서 이긴 것 같아서 매우 기분이 좋습니다. 그 이제 코리안 킬러 이런 좀 프레임을 그 바뀔 수 있는 그런 것 같아서.
This question was over to Zepha. How do you feel to finally stop G2's nightmare up against the LCK? And he answered, I think G2 is a team that prepares both draft and play style really well. And compared to other teams in different regions, I think they are very competitive. And Also, due to some of the matchups, they were able to take down the LCK teams consecutively. But this time around, I'm happy that we were able to take them down by outplaying them. And also, I'm happy that we can finally stop people from framing them as the Korean killer.
这是 Formos 的 Kenzie 记者向 Zephyr 监督的提问。你们打破了 G2 克制 LCK 队伍的这样一个魔咒，那么你们现在感想是怎么样的呢？Zephyr 监督的回答是，我认为 G2 是无论是在 BEP 还是打法方面都准备了非常详细的一支队伍。即使是在其他赛区来看，它都是一支非常有竞争力的队伍。所以他们能够连续击败 LCK 的队伍。但是我觉得我们今天的比赛，我们从开始的部分就比他们准备的更多，比他们领先更多，所以今天能够顺利的赢下G2， 然后感觉也可以让 G2 脱下韩国队杀手这一个称号。
Okay, that's all for today. Congratulations to DWG, and please stand up and take a photo.
It's Wake Up World Semifinals Day 1. Damwon Gaming defeat G2 to advance into World's Finals. Now that their run has come to an end, what's next for G2? We'll take a look back at the Western region's performances at Worlds and look ahead at tomorrow's semifinal match. still dashing in. He wants a little bit more. Going in on the Brooks. Look at that damage. Canyon taking names left and right. Damwon Gaming sweeping G2 off the map.
Big arrow.
Oh, that was the biggest brain arrow we've seen all tournament. My God, Ghost shut down onto Wonder, and that is certainly a way to put hope back in side of Damwon Gaming. So he's going in onto Ghost. This is massive. Caps moving through the entire team. Wonder now in the midst of everything, but G2 are backing off. Biggie's just so incredibly fishy. They do not have the gold. They do not have the damage. G2 are now getting run down. Canyon looking unstoppable. How about a little bit of Arden? 18 minutes and 30 seconds, and this is not the way that Europe expected it to go. The greatest team Europe has ever produced falling flat here in Game 4. Day 18 of the World Championship is in the books, and we're here to break it all down. It's Wake Up Worlds. Welcome one, welcome all to Wake Up Worlds, our ESPN Esports Worlds program. Thank you for joining us live on Twitch and on YouTube. He's Tyler, I'm Arda, and we are here with you every step of the way until a world champion is crowned. If you have been sticking around watching the post-series press conferences with G2 and Damwon, thanks for sticking with us. If you're watching this on demand after the fact, you can go and check out those press conferences on our YouTube channel /ESPN Esports. And just as the series was interesting, those press conferences had a lot of interesting tidbits as well. But let's get to the result itself. Let's dissect the series and then weave in those comments, Tyler, as it is Damwon extracting revenge from their 2019 quarterfinal exit in emphatic fashion. They set the record for shortest game in World's history, and I believe it is fourth on the international charts. And this is, if there was ever a way to get revenge, Tyler, this was it.
Yeah, this was everything Damwon could have hoped for and more. We've talked about it all tournament long, since even like the first episodes of Wake Up Worlds, about Damwon wants this matchup. They want G2. They don't want them in the quarters. They don't want them in the group stages. They want them in the semis. They want them in the finals. They want to embarrass G2. They want to take everything G2 worked for and flush it down the drain, essentially. And it was a series, and we're going to dive obviously a lot more into what happened, the players, the dynamics, what went wrong, what went right. But I think overall, I think we can summarize the series as a really incredible team, an amazing, incredible, talented, exciting to watch team face a team that might be one of the best of all time. Damwon might be one of the best League of Legends teams of all time. G2 is not that. And I think today that level was shown. And it's nothing taking away from G2 Esports. They're an incredible team. One of the most talented teams in the World Championship. 5 players who are experienced, all know how to play the game at the highest level. You could say all 5 are world-class players, but Damwon learned from what they were given last year by G2. They went into the workshop. They were fueled by their embarrassment, fueled by that loss to G2 in Madrid. And this year, they repackaged themselves after a disappointing spring. They've been utterly incredible in the summer, and they are one best of 5 away from being called one of the best teams of all time. And depending on how well they play in this final, it would be a debate: are they up there with Samsung Way? Are they up there with SKT 2015? That's where they are right now. They are close to that pantheon. No team has gone close to that pantheon since 2015 and 2015 SKT. Can Damwon do that? Because today, this is not a bad G2 team. This is not a out-of-form G2 team. This was the G2 that smashed Genji. This is the G2 that had one of the best games of all time at Worlds against Suning, and they were absolutely crushed in the fastest game in Worlds history by Damwon, who is just a special team.
25% of you selected Damwon to defeat G2, which just goes to show you, yes, one of us selected Damwon over G2. Take a wild guess who predicted Damwon to win this series.
Feels good. Feels good.
ESPN.com/League of Legends Predictor. You can play for free. You can pick your choices for the finals. It's not open yet, obviously, but you can get there eventually. And if you have the ESPN Fantasy app, you just click on the trophy tab. You can play. You can create custom groups. You can invite your friends. It's a whole lot of fun. So going back to this series, let's dissect lane by lane, player by player. If you were to pinpoint, Tyler, one matchup in particular that was really one of the biggest causes, if not the biggest cause, for Damwon to win this series, which one would it be?
I think it's very difficult to say it was one position, Arda, because the thing is, Damwon it's such a team-focused meta where you're playing through the jungle, where your support is unlocked from the bottom lane, where you are, skirmishing throughout the jungler, you are roaming, making plays on a TF or another global ultimate champion to go to the top lane, to go to the bottom lane. I think overall it was another kind of indication that Kanan's made for this meta. Yankos, great player. This was not his meta to thrive in. He's a player that enables his laners. This is a meta where most of the laners are enabling the jungler. So I don't want to pinpoint one position and say one position just got torn up by the rest. I think this was an overall systematic dissection by Damwon, where it was from pretty much every single lane through the jungle itself. They kind of just took over it outside of that game too, which I don't want to say that Damwon trolled, but it's very similar to how, Team Liquid beat G2 in that one game in the group stage, and we're like, that was like 90% Team Liquid, 10% G2, kind of playing a wonky draft. Very similar, where that was a very confident draft by Damwon, basically picking the Fiora into the Camille, putting the Guri on a split pusher instead of just putting him on a Lulu or something safer to team fight with, like Kennen maybe. And they took the reverse matchup of Silas versus TF, a very kind of arrogant draft that kind of came into their face, blew up in their face. And then the next two games played back to their normal style, didn't take anything for granted, and kind of dominated both of those games. So I just think from 1 to 5, it was just Damwon being the better team. Obviously Mickey X had some blunders, but it's not just one player's fault when you get destroyed in 19 minutes. When you lose the fastest game in Worlds history, it's not one player's fault. You don't just lose through one lane. You lose through all the lanes. And in Game 4, that mental fortitude that we've been talking about, that you've been preaching upon with G2 and how they don't, when their backs are against it wasn't there. They had just a disaster of game where they were trying to find those skirmishes. They were trying to play that jazz music art. They were trying to find those improvised solos and try to make those, chaotic plays. But while they were trying to take those chaotic plays, Ghost was in the bottom lane, free farming on Caitlyn, getting 5 plates. And it was just kind of a summarization of the calamity of that series, where by the end of it, Damwon had just kind of broken G2. And I don't think we've ever seen it. I don't think we've ever seen G2 that broken.
You could have the greatest orchestra in the entire world, but if your instruments are out of tune, you won't sound good. And it just felt like G2's instruments were out of tune in this series. It felt like, exactly to your point, they just could. Game 2, as much trolling as there was, I thought that was going to be the point where G2 was going to get themselves mentally back into it. Okay, we got the victory here. Maybe we can use this momentum and snowball. But then it was as if Damwon did that intentionally, just to hammer the point down that even after a loss, we are going to outplay you in every way, shape, or form, capped off by the way that they absolutely decimated them in Game 4. And so that was just a sublime performance. Okay, let me turn my attention to Caps then, because we saw claps in the quarterfinals. We didn't see claps in the semifinals. So what was it specifically about Caps's play here that he just couldn't get out of the gates in this series?
It was that Damwon prepared for him well. And where Gen G were very keen on kind of just handshaking, all right, we're going to play around ruler. We're okay giving you your space, Caps. We'll let you win lane. We'll give you priority. We'll let you roam around the map. We'll let you have free reign in the jungle. We're going to let you do what you want to do. You can freestyle on us as long as we can try to keep ruler somewhat intact. Damwon, we're expecting everything that kind of Caps was doing. There was one point in the Akali game that was very specific, and I think everyone will remember this if you watch the series, where Caps goes AFK for about 30 seconds. He's in the top side brush, on top side, waiting for Kanan to do Krugs, waiting for him to do Krugs so he can 1v1, solo kill him, move on his merry way, get some gold in his pocket, and get that momentum rolling, Arda. That in a Gen G series, and another series, and other group stage matches where we saw much more chaotic play, we would have seen this happen where, Kanan goes to Krugs, oh, there's Caps out of nowhere, Caps blows him up. But in this instance, they knew where he was. They knew this play was coming, and they had Showmaker shadow Canyon up into that top lane, doing Krugs. They find out Caps, 2v1 him, and he's dead. And all of that momentum that they were trying to get was totally squandered. And that minute of him just AFK in the bush, totally wasted. It just kind of personified the series. And they try to have these crazy skirmishing plays, and it did work in game 2 when they were trying to play with the Fiora and had that wonky draft. But when Damwon had the global ultimates like the TF, and how superbly Showmaker played throughout the series, kind of shadowing Caps, he was never able to kind of get his own. He was never able to kind of feel free. He was kind of like a bird in a cage, where Caps is at his best when he's flying free, when he feels like he has all this space to work with, when he has all this, canvas to paint. But when he is locked down and neutralized, and they know where he is every second of the map with how superb the vision control of Barrel and Canyon are, and with how good Showmaker was of shadowing Caps throughout the series, he was never able to kind of breathe. And when you have an artist like Caps and you don't give him his space, he kind of can overextend and try to do those hero plays, which he did in the series. And those hero plays turned into embarrassing craps moments where, in the final game, game 4, we tried to see him 1v1 Showmaker on Silas and get the first blood in a solo kill. And it's just really well done by Damwon to show that they can play a myriad of styles, and they can not only bludgeon you in 20-minute games, but they can also just bleed you out and kind of control the entire jungle like an old school South Korean juggernaut. So Damwon is everything. They are looking like one of the best teams of all time, and G2 just wasn't up to snuff.
As we get into our player ratings here, I'll start with Damwon. Sublime scores, as you would expect, all around. And as you're going to see, pretty much everyone got a 10 instead of except for Naguri and Canyon. And the only reason that's not taking anything away from them. I just thought that Showmaker and Barrel and Ghost in particular, like the bot lane was excellent this game. Statistically, they were just far superior over every other lane for Damwon over G2, and Showmaker was just like, this was a show-stopping performance, so to speak. So that's why I gave those particular numbers. But Naguri and Canyon absolutely contributed. Like you said, it was a team game. I'm taking nothing away from them. I just want to highlight how great the bot lane and Showmaker's performances were, and that's why I gave these particular numbers. Tyler, let's shift focus to you. You gave some numbers to Damwon as well. What'd you do?
Very similar to yours. Naguri and Canyon both get 9s kind of for their second game performance. Ghost and Barrel 10s. Ghost continually being that fifth man who is often overlooked as the weakest link of Damwon, but being the weakest link of a world-class team where 1 through 5 you can just get it done on any given day. He was better than Perksay in almost every single kind of facet. So he gets a 10 for me, Barrel 10, and for me, Showmaker got 11. I think Showmaker was just he was the king of the roost today. This was his moment. He's been the one who's been trash talking the most. He's been saying, "I want G2, I want Caps, I want them badly. I don't care about South Korean pride. I don't want Jeonju in the semifinals. Give me G2, and I will send them home quickly." And he got that moment. And we've seen it many times before where you talk big and you don't show up. It's a lot more of bark than bite. With his emotes right in the holster, he shot them out every chance he had. And by the end of the series, there was no kind of argument. Showmaker was the far better mid laner than Caps, who coming into today was the best mid laner, best performing mid laner at Worlds 2020. So Showmaker just shut Caps down. And Caps, who was in form, playing some of the best League of Legends of his career, he kind of just broke him down and systematically with that TF broke down the entire G2 system.
I do want to give a shout out, by the way, speaking of those emotes, Carlos, obviously the CEO founder of G2, addressed all of that and said, look,
Yeah.
You can't talk smack when you're winning if you can't accept it when you're losing. He actually had a very classy video that he put up and told his G2 fans, hey, accept it, take it on the chin because they deserve it, and let them have their fun. You know, even the celebration afterwards where they were mocking the cap celebration of throwing him into the... We didn't get fire, by the way. We did not get fire.
Kind of fire. It was
We got like embers
Sparks,
in the air.
Embers,
Like what was... Yeah, but we didn't get like a pit.
Yeah.
We just got the floor.
It got close, but no, I actually wholeheartedly agree with you, and I love what Carlos said. These matches mean so much more when both teams can jaw jack. Last year G2 did a lot of trash talking. I mean, they trash talked Team Liquid into the dumpster at last year's MSI when Wonder said it's going to be the quickest best of 5 of all time, and it was the quickest best of 5 of all time. This is really the first time where, even though G2 did get 0-3 last year, this is really the first time they've been plain out embarrassed. They got beat in the fastest world time of all time. And if you're going to talk the trash, you're going to have to take it back too. And I appreciate Carlos because he's one guy who will talk trash to everyone. But if he falters, if his team falters, if something goes wrong, he's the first to laugh at himself. And he's the first one to open himself up and his team to criticism. And I love that about that. And everything's better with trash talk. Everything's better with emotions. And I'm really glad to see that this Damwon team is kind of bucking the trend of how people see these South Korean teams as, too polite, a bit of robotic. Back in the day with Imp on Samsung White, they did trash talk. The trash talk was there. Imp would trash talk anyone and everyone. And the spirit of Imp lives in the souls of people like Showmaker and Naguri and the rest of Damwon. And I like the swagger to Damwon. I like how they came in and said, we are the better team. We were the better team last year, and we didn't prove it because we were young and inexperienced and dumb, and we were scared of the big spotlight. This year, the spotlight was on them, and they destroyed G2 in the fastest game of all time. So, in Worlds of all time, not the fastest game of all time. There's been a few quicker than today's show.
I believe it's the 4th fastest international game of all time. But yeah, the fastest at Worlds for sure. Let's go to G2's ratings. Continue your thought, but we're going to show G2's ratings on the screen as well.
So for my G2 ratings, I had Wonder as a 5, Yinkos as a 4, Caps as a 4, Perks as a 4, Mickey X as a 3. It's really hard to grade them individually. I think you can give flip-flop some scores around, but I think overall this was a decent scoreline for them. Wasn't the meta they would have probably hoped for, as I believe Perk said in the post-match interview. The Korean and Asian team, or Korean and Chinese teams, have been playing this heavy farm jungle, the carry jungle meta a bit longer than the Western sides. But overall, it's just, again, it's one of the best teams of all time versus a world-class team. G2 on any other given year, when there's not a Pantheon level team in the tournament, this team could have won Worlds, but they came into contact with a team playing the absolute best they can, who can play various styles at 10 out of 10 levels, and I really do believe Damwon can be one of those Pantheon teams. I think if they can get it done, if they can go 3-0, or if they go 3-1 in the finals versus Top Esports or Suning, they could reach the Pantheon of SKT 2015 or Samsung White 2014, and that would be really special.
So those are our player ratings. Of course, we do them for every single series, and they are very series specific. It's not the entire tournament, and we will do them, of course, tomorrow as well when TES take on Suning, and that will be a 6 a.m. Eastern start, and our show will begin sometime around 11 a.m. Eastern. Depends on the length of the series and the post-game press conferences. Very likely that we will do a similar structure to today, where we come on to the show after the press conferences have concluded, particularly if it's a longer series. Let's talk about the Western teams now. All of them are out. G2 was the last hope. Fnatic out at the quarterfinals. No NA teams past groups. We've talked about these storylines and beats at length on previous episodes of Wake Up Worlds, but now it really hits home. Now we are guaranteed a completely East-focused final with one LCK team and one LPL team. So how will we look back at Europe and NA's performances overall at Worlds 2020?
I think it will be seen as the bare minimum. I think the bare minimum of every team kind of hit their spot. I think we came into Worlds thinking G2 is going to be a top 4 team at worst, or like that is their like most likely spot is top 4, losing to a top esports or a JD Gaming or a Damwon. Fnatic, top 8 team, fought in the quarterfinals. All of NA not making groups. There would be 1 or 2 teams making a 3-3 record, losing to a tiebreaker. We saw that with FlyQuest and Team Liquid. The only real embarrassing, the Mad Lions and TSM are probably the big outliers here, where they didn't live up to the expectations. Even if you didn't think TSM wasn't going to make it out of the group, you still think they'd probably win 1 or 2 games. Mad Lions, even if you didn't think they were that great of a team, would still make the group stages and then lose, 1-5, 2-4 there. So I think overall it's a very melancholy state for the West, where one team made the top 4 and they were outclassed by a possible Pantheon team, a possible one of the best teams of all time. So it kind of left you lingering there. And I made this I made this post on Twitter, and I said, no Western team has ever hoisted the Summoners Cup. And you can come at me and say, Fnatic 2011, they won the Season 1 World Championship. For one, wasn't called the World Championship back then. It was just called the Season 1 Championship. No Chinese or Korean team were in that tournament. That's a pretty big adage that you would want to add on any time you want to bring up Fnatic winning the championship. And even if you want to consider Fnatic a world champion, they never hoisted the Summoners Cup. The Summoners Cup wasn't created until Season 2, 2012, when the Taipei Assassins raised it up. It's another year where a Western team isn't going to hoist the Summoners Cup. And it's a melancholy feeling, because it's like, if G2 can't do this, and if this is the wall G2 is going to hit with this 5-man roster, are they going to get better with this 5-man roster? It's hard to think about, right? Where you would think that they would be better this year than last year because you get that extra year experience, but they didn't improve as much as you maybe would have loved to see from this 5-man roster. And it feels like we've hit a ceiling, Arda, where what's going to happen? And from everything I've been told, and it's going to be a crazy, crazy, crazy free agency period. I thought it'd be very boring. COVID and maybe I thought it would be a slower year. There's rumors and crazy rumors, and I don't think the status quo is going to stick in either region. I feel like we're going to see a lot of shakeups all around Europe and North America, and it feels like this could be the end of a chapter. I feel like this could be an end of a chapter for the Western scene, where they improved, where G2 got very close, but they hit a ceiling, and we might see shuffling coming on to try to take on the next generation, because Damwon's not going anywhere. They're young as hell. Unless, money talks and that team splits up because of LPL influences, or an NA team throws a large cash check at Naguri in the offseason, that team probably sticks together, and that's a team that could only get better. That might only get better as time goes on. So it's a very melancholy feeling, Arda.
Yeah, and let me add this based on everything you said. No Western team exceeded expectations, and only a couple matched expectations, and I think that's a concern. I would say that is valid to be concerned after all the collective performances at Worlds. We didn't get a standout performance necessarily. Every G2 making the semifinals was to be expected. Fnatic making the quarterfinals was to be expected. There were teams that underperformed, like you said, TSM going 0-6, Mad Lions fizzling out against Supermassive in the way they did at play-ins. Team Liquid making it to groups was expected. Team Liquid making it out of groups would have been exceeding expectations. And actually, maybe they were the closest, because they were one scenario away, really, from making it into the playoffs, but it didn't happen. And so now you're left thinking, it really does feel like an end of an era in a way. Free agency is going to be very interesting to see what happens where. And of course, we're going to cover it all, whether it's on our on the editorial side, ESPN.com/esports. Maybe we have a couple of announcements coming up. Maybe, I don't know, could be happening. I don't know. Have you heard anything, Tyler? Do you know anything?
I mean, from everything we've heard, it's gonna be a crazy off season. Yeah. We're not limited this year by a studio time. So we're at home. We're all in our own. We all have our webcams on. We're all we're connected. We're all connected to all these people telling us things. It could be for a crazy offseason, for a crazy free agency day, we might have to go a bit bigger this year. Last year was 2 hours. 2 hours is a good time. It was a good time.
That was a show we did, right? That was like a 2-hour show.
yeah.
We were live. We were there was someone in a wolf den and giving
Oh,
us
yeah.
like reports, and you were getting DMs.
Yeah, DMs,
yeah.
Twitter rolling our phones. And I think this year with what the rumors over here, with how the shuffling is going on, with Team Liquid possibly making moves, Cloud9 already making moves, Europe looking to make some moves on those top teams possibly. Even China and South Korea, I've already heard murmurs of shuffling maybe to be had. We might have to go a bit longer than 2 hours this time. It might be a supersized version of the free agency show this time around.
Who knows? All I'm saying is follow us on Twitter, ESPN_esports, and you might get some updates on what we may or may not be doing during free agency. And actually, let's talk about free agency, give people a little taste of what they can look forward to as we get closer to that middle of November timeframe when free agency officially begins. People are now going to ask the questions about G2. Now, this was a conversation we had on a previous episode, Tyler. We talked about those bubble performance teams. Now, this was more so about teams making the postseason as opposed to being very good or very bad in their domestic league. Obviously, G2 won the spring and summer. They are still favorites in any split they go into. But now you can consider them at least on a bubble team as it pertains to success at Worlds. Because for the last 3 years, they've been a Final Four team, but they have not been able to break through. And now the questions are going to start being posed about the team and about whether there needs to be even more changes to be made or what is going wrong. Are these 3 years anomalies in that certain things happened in those 3 years that they just couldn't get over the hump and they are the team to do this? Or do we need to look at the team and say maybe there's a couple of pieces to change? In your opinion, what is G2's future?
That's such a loaded question. That's just a broad question, Arda. And they just got eliminated from Worlds. They're in Shanghai. They're in a hotel. They're all under contract for a few years. The core is, supposedly sticking together. But we've learned very quickly in esports, those contracts are very easy to get traded out of. If Hootie's $1.2 million contract, 2-year, $1.2 million per year contract can get bought out in like 2 months, any contract can be traded. Any contract can be bought out, especially when you have some of the most premier talents in the world, not just the Western world, but the entire world. And there are murmurs. And I mean, there's been murmurs of Perks. What's Perks going to do? Does Perks want to stay in the AD carry role? We saw him excel in the mid lane role during the spring split, but Caps wasn't the best AD carry. Now we're in this position where Perks was very selfless in giving up the mid role. We can talk about how great Perks is as an AD carry all day. I still think he's a really good AD carry, a world-class AD carry, but his natural position, the position he is best at, is in the mid lane. Caps' best position, bar none, is the mid lane. They both kind of took, cuts to their role. Caps for a split, Perks for 3 splits to, win a championship, to win the Summers Cup, because they thought together, those two together, the two best Western players of all time, that they could win a Summers Cup if they both took losses on their own personal gain when it came to their natural positions. And last year they made the World Finals and lost in 0-3. They were outclassed by FPX in the final. They turned a year later, another year of Perks being able to play AD carry, at least for one split, Caps playing AD carry for a split. The team getting another year to marinate, to mature, to learn from the losses last year, and they lose in the semifinals to Damwon Gaming in our class. And the question is, do you run it back? If you're Perks, if you're Caps, are you ready to, take more self-losses to try to win a world championship when you've been outclassed the last 2 years by 2 really amazing Asian teams? And I'm not saying G2 can't win a world championship with this roster. They can. The talent's there. If the meta is right, if the team is playing at their best, they are as talented as any team at the world championship. This meta didn't fit them perfectly, but it fit them well enough to make the top 4. And if you're Caps and if you're Perks, specifically Perks, you've taken on this role as AD carry, but you are a natural mid laner, Do you do it one more year? Do you say, let's run it back? Or do you want to, you've had a rough year, obviously, the loss of his father, the kind of the strain of playing so many tournaments in a row. Again, you have to remember that this team plays all the playoff games, all the international tournaments, because they've been so dominant the last 2 years, especially Caps, who's been playing in everything the last 3 years. And do you run it back? Arda, if you were Perks, would you continue playing that AD carry role and playing out of position, not your best position, for a world title that may never come? Would you possibly give it more prime years to play a position where you don't feel you are as good at as your natural position? Because I think you can argue if he's an amazing top level AD carry, I believe he is. But I still believe in my heart of hearts that Perks is a natural mid laner, and that is where Perks does his best. And that's the same thing of Caps.
It's such a tricky situation.
Yeah, it's so difficult.
It's like these are two great players, and one of them has to play their unnatural role, and you keep hitting a wall for 3 straight years as G2 as a whole. But like Perks and Caps now have had multiple years of unfortunate outcomes according to them, and now you got to wonder, are they on the bubble? It's just crazy to think that. I wonder what era of like you go back to that Hooney contract and you tell me, because I don't know. I only know the numbers that are out there. I haven't necessarily heard what contracts are like in League of Legends, right? I've heard like the $400,000 average LCS salary, and obviously Hooney's salary and buyouts for Vulcan, etc., right? But like, I wonder if that Hooney contract was so landmark and so substantial, how many players, especially ones that are expiring, are going to look at that and say, I deserve that, right? That may not have said that before. So I wonder what the economics of contracts are going to be and how much they will have been pushed up based on Hooney's contract and things like that alone. Like, where are we going? And what will free agency look like as a result?
It's also a situation where if you are the G2 brass and if you want to, sell either Perks or Caps, you're going to make a boatload. You will probably break records for a buyout. And with that money you get back from either Perks or Caps, you could probably go out and get an upset. You could probably go out and get upset for your AD carry. You could probably get whatever AD carry you want with the money you get from either Perks or Caps, and you would create a maybe more traditional, super team with upset or another high-class AD carry in that role. If you want to go that way, if Perks wants to play mid lane for another team, or if Caps wants to play mid lane for another team, and you want to stick with Perks, because Perks, as we've said for forever, is the franchise player, where Caps is the ace player of the team, Perks is the face. He's the quasi de facto son of Carlos. He's the person that you see being, high management in G2 in 5-10 years of, running a high, he's an executive in the business, similar to a Faker or a Bjergsen at TSM and SKT or T1 now. So it's just a very, very difficult situation where, if Fnatic's like, oh, you Caps, we'll give you everything. We'll give you everything for him. And if you're an NA team, you'll give everything for Caps or Perks. Like, it's
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Well, and actually, we need to pivot because massive news just dropped from the LCS. Bjergsen has announced his retirement.
What?
He is moving to a new role. You can go to his official. Go to his Twitter right now, Tyler. Have a look, and I'll inform everybody that Bjergsen is moving to a new role with TSM. TSM just posted a 4-minute video that Bjergsen is officially retiring from active competition. And this just an unbelievable piece of news. Maybe some people saw it coming. We talked about it on Wake Up Worlds in a previous episode where I hypothesized that this might be coming after what TSM went through, Tyler, in this Worlds 2020 and what he went through the entire year. This might have been the logical conclusion. It had to have been in his mind, thinking about the year as a whole and his entire career and how long he's been playing, and now it is official that he will retire from active competition, and now he will remain with TSM as a coach. Of course, he is an equity owner in TSM, and so that means that he will have always stayed with TSM. There was no way really financially that it would have made sense for him to go to any other team in any other capacity because he was an equity owner with TSM. And so now he will remain. And now we got to talk about this decision, Tyler.
No!
You are not happy with this.
No!
You're not happy with this.
No!
What's
No,
going on in
Arda.
your mind right now, Tyler? What
No!
give us your thoughts, please.
No, Arda! No!
You are not happy. You are really
Not like
unhappy.
this! Not like this! You
What?
can't get...
What were you expecting?
He went out 0-6, Arda! He went out 0-6!
But what were you hoping, that he would have another year if he wasn't motivated to
One
do
more
so?
run!
You wanted one more. You wanted one more run.
You don't go... You went out... Oh, his last thing...
He's been playing for so many years. What is it, 2013, 2012 that he's been playing in the... Was it TSM since 2013, right? Like, he's been playing for so many years. Like, that takes a toll on you for playing. Like, that is a long career in League of Legends. He's been with TSM since the 2014 season. And then before that, he'd been playing since April 2012. So, like, that is such a long career. Like, what is the average time span for a professional in League of Legends? Certainly shorter than that. Not to mention being the face of the franchise and the captain of the team and the leading voice of the team as well. I mean, I don't see this as a shock. I understand from a results standpoint, you know, fizzling out at Worlds, and that's not the way you want to do it. But he did win his last domestic title after having a long drought with TSM. So you could look at it as a positive that way.
No, Arda! No! No! This is no!
Give us some
No!
thoughts. Just give us some ideas. Like, look at Bjergsen's career and just the idea of him. Like, how monumental is it that he is one of the old guard, one of the leading faces of the LCS, one of the ambassadors of the LCS, and now he's hanging him up for a new role.
He was, it just, oh my God, like, we're talking about caps and perks, and if they move and now this happens and it leaves up a gigantic hole in TS. I mean, if perks or caps are on the market, I'm sure Reggie, and I guess Bjergsen now would be paying for either caps or perks to come over to TS. Like, I'm flabbergasted. I'm flabbergasted. You know, we talked about the retirement thing, and I'm not gonna lie, when we talked about the retirement thing of Bjergsen, I felt like that was clickbait. I thought we were being little clickbait monsters, Arda. I thought we were like, oh, we'll get our 30, 40, 50,000 view video here about Bjergsen retiring. You know, we go 0-6, he's gonna retire. I never believed it. I didn't think he'd actually retire. I thought this would be a season of he would reflect, and he said it was embarrassing. He would go back to the lab. He'd go back to the chalkboard. He would, you know, we've heard about, you know, possibly the bot lane being benched, bringing in, you know, new players, maybe a new top laner, bringing maybe a Licorice or an Impact, you know, revitalizing that kind of style. And Bjergsen's retired, man. It's
okay. Let's dissect it from the Bjergsen point of view and then from the TSM point of view. For Bjergsen's point of view, he's had an illustrious career. He's had a successful career in the LCS. He's won multiple domestic titles. He didn't necessarily have the success at Worlds, but he has made several Worlds appearances. What will Bjergsen's legacy be?
His legacy will be the greatest LCS mid laner of all time. One of, if not the greatest LCS player of all time. A person who came here as a anxiety-ridden kid, lanky, not confident, excellent player, quiet, shy, reserved, who was given and forced to take on this mantle of a juggernaut, this behemoth, these millions and millions of fans wanting TSM to succeed on this poor kid's shoulders. And over the last 7 years, we've watched him grow into a man, a confident, brilliant, respected by all man, who is one of the best players I've ever interviewed, one of the best guys I've met in esports. Just everyone loves him. Everyone respects him. He is really, overcome those anxiety-ridden days, those days in Denmark, and he's really grown and blossomed into one of the premier faces in all of esports. He is a legend. He is a great, great player, maybe even a better person, and I wish he didn't go out 0-6. I wish he didn't go out 0-6, Arda. We were talking about it, and I was like, I want to see Bjergsen with that killer instinct this tournament. I want to see him come out and have the tournament to remember. I want him to have that tournament where even if it goes a 3-3 and they don't make it out of groups, or they make it quarterfinals and get 3-0'd by Damwon. I want him to have a tournament to be proud of, and for that to be his landmark world championship, that international performance people can remember him by after all the great domestic performances. And it didn't happen. And just like Dyrus in 2015, when he retired after losing to LGD in the group stages of Worlds, I guess LGD is now the official curse of TSM players, of TSM legends when it comes to Worlds. TSM should never want to see LGD again ever in any group stage, because anytime you play them, one of your legends is going to retire. So it's hard, man. It hits hard. Like he's truly one of the landmark players of a region. And when we talk about all the import players and how a lot of these players come in for the quick paycheck and they come here to get a quick buck, or they make fun of North America, or they don't appreciate or kind of, assimilate to the culture. It's like Bjergsen's none of that. He is a guy who's come here since day one and worked his ass off. And he's gone from that kid who had the entire world thrown onto his shoulders to now being an owner of one of the biggest esports organizations, and he's going to be a millionaire hopefully all his life. And I understand the decision. I think he's a great coach. He's a very even keel fellow. I think he's smart. He's intelligent enough to do it. Free agency is going to be crazy, Arda. Free agency is going to be a madhouse. I don't even know what's happening anymore. Who knows what's going on? Who the hell knows?
When you look back on Bjergsen's career, what accomplishment or what year? Those are two separate questions, but let's address them both. Let's start with accomplishment. Which LCS title do you think was the sweetest for Bjergsen and TSM? For a Bjergsen-led TSM team?
I think, if I think back on it, I mean, again, we did not prepare for a Bjergsen retirement segment on this show. This was really out of nowhere. I think the sweetest victory probably was 2016 summer versus C9 in Toronto. 3-1, beating your rivals. That was the first year of Doublelift, getting the first title of Doublelift, Hanser, Biofrost, and Skaren. And I remember being in the press conference after they won that title, and I don't think I've really felt this since. That was a team, the 2016 TSM team, that felt like they could win. They were the G2 of today. They were G2 of, we can do this. We can win a world title with me, Doublelift, Hanser, Bio, and Sven. We can win this. We are going to win the Summoners Cup. They were confident, and when they went to Worlds that year in North America, it wasn't just talk. Everyone around them, all the international teams, the Asian, the Korean teams, respected the hell of that TSM squad. They respected Bjergsen as one of the best mid laners at that tournament. They respected the TSM team. They saw TSM as a top 4 favorite. I talked to a few teams that thought they were, could play SKT in the grand finals at Staples Center. And obviously they did not make it out of groups. They were in a very tough group, and they fell short of expectations. But I think for Swedish, I think of what he will remember most, I think that 2016 team, because I think back then he really believed that he could win the Summoners Cup. And since then, the 2018, 2019, 2020 team, even as number 1 NA seed, I think he went into Worlds wanting to do damage, but I don't think he thought he could win Worlds like he did back in 2016, 2017, in that era, that golden era of the Biofrost Doublelift Bjergsen squad.
Was that the same? Is that the same answer for when Bjerg was at his best? Like, if you were to pinpoint whether it's a moment, a month, a year that Bjergsen was at his absolute peak, he was the unbeatable Bjerg in mid lane. where in the timeline would that be, in your opinion?
I think it would be that Bjergsen Doublelift team of the summer of 2016. They were untouchable pretty much. They made a joke of the league after losing to Stixay and CLG the prior season. They buckled down. They did the Damwon thing of saying we were going to take our embarrassment and fuel it into our hunger, and they just ran roughshod. And that was the peak of Bjergsen's powers. That was when, I remember in interviews I would talk to Faker and I would ask, what do you think about Bjergsen? And Faker would be like, oh yeah, they say he's the Western me. I really respect him. I want to play him. I see him as a player that I want to see at my level. That was the levy, the standard Bjergsen was back in 2016 and 2017. Obviously, those two world losses back-to-back years really dampened his legacy in the international stage and in TSM as a whole. But that was the year, that was the moment where everyone looked at Bjergsen and said, he's on the very similar to Caps, where he was like, he's on the cusp of being maybe the first Westerner to hold the Summoners Cup, to hoist it, to raise it high as a world champion. Obviously, TSM failed, and now 2019, 2020, we were talking about G2 and how they got farther, way farther than either. They went far past what TSM did back in 2016, 2017. They did not choke. They did not, play below expectations. But that team, that kind of 2016, 2017 Bjergsen, especially the end of 2016, I think that was his peak.
How long do you think Bjergsen had been thinking about this? Like when we talked about this a week ago on the show, okay? We sort of hypothesized that maybe Bjergsen is thinking about this. We didn't necessarily say Bjergsen should retire. We definitely didn't say that. But I did say it's definitely in his mind. And now I'm starting to, as we talk about this, I'm starting to wonder when Bjergsen actually began to think about the prospect of retirement. And I wonder if the very first time he thought about it was when he received his new contract that included equity in the company. I'm not saying that he was making a plan to retire. I would get, if I was putting myself in Bjergsen's shoes, Tyler, and I was negotiating a contract, and then I realized that I'm receiving equity in a company, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, I'm with this company for life because now I'm a co-owner. I am going to be black and white TSM for the rest of my life, and I will transition into something. So at that point, I'm starting to think, what do I want to do? And obviously, Bjergsen was thinking coaching at some point in time, right? Or it seems as though that was the case. So there, I would guess that he just started to visualize it, not necessarily will for it to happen, but more so, okay, what could I do after I'm done? Not that I'm done yet, but what could I do? I could coach, I could manage, I could be part of the marketing department, I could, be an executive, I could do whatever I want. But what would I enjoy doing after my playing career is over? And you and I both know, you've interviewed him countless times in the past. I had a chance to speak with him a couple times this split, and he's a very well-spoken guy. He's a very introspective guy. He's also a very honest guy. One of the things that struck me was when I was speaking with him after they won the championship, or in the summer split, he had a little bit of concern. Actually, sorry, it was before that, when they had qualified for Worlds. He actually had a little bit of concern traveling to Shanghai. He's like, I have a severe case of asthma. I have to actually ask some doctors and wonder if I should go to Shanghai, because this could be a health concern. So long as it's safe for me to do so, I will travel to Shanghai. And clearly it was, because he was there and he competed. But now, what do you think? Like, how long do you think this has been in his mind? Do you think this was a decision based off of what happened at Worlds? Or do you think he's been thinking about this in long-term planning for a while?
Yeah, and I never thought he would retire this year. I thought when we talked about before, I was like, oh, we're the clickbait monsters. We're gonna get some views here. Never thought it would happen, but I think it does start from 2 years ago or a year ago from around this time when he signed with TSM as a co-owner, a long-term deal. When if he hit the open market, he would have drove up his price like mad. He would have garnered a $1.5+ million deal on the open market. He could have maybe got plus $2 million on the open market from an NA or a European team. I mean, he has over 1 million Twitter followers. He is one of the biggest faces in all of esports. He is well-spoken. Like you said, he is pretty squeaky clean when it comes to controversy. He's not a player who has a checkered past, Arda. He's a very clean, squeaky clean brand that you can just put on any sort of jersey and he's going to sell like hotcakes. And man, it's just like, it's a situation where I'd probably believe that this tournament did kind of knock him into the sense of like, I want to go to coaching. I think I would have to believe that he went into this tournament saying this could be my last go around. This was my last rodeo of him wanting to prove himself. I think him wanting to play LeBlanc in a game of a do or die game versus LGD was him saying, let's see if I still have it. Let's see if I can still, be the Bjergsen of old. See if that Superman outfit still fits. If I can carry TSM like the old days, I can put them on my back and carry them to a victory versus an international foe. And it didn't happen. And that killer instinct I wanted to see, that killer instinct that I preached of like, I want to see Bjergsen with his, with the fangs, with the blood running down his face. I want to see him like Cap, zoned in 24/7. Even when, everyone on G2 is laughing at the press conference after losing. And again, nothing against laughing after losing. I laugh after mistakes all the time. It's how you process things. People process things in different ways. But Caps is locked in. He is zoned in. He is still thinking about that loss in his head 24/7. And you want to see Bjergsen have that tournament where he just took over. The takeover. This is the tournament of taking over, and he just didn't. And he went 0-6. And he was one of the worst performing mids of the entire tournament. So it's his legacy is not dampened by the 0-6, I think. I still think he's gonna be remembered as one of the all-time best Western players. But he's not going to be remembered as the best, like Caps or Perks, because his legacy never had that international glory to go along with it.
So we're getting some reactions on Twitter right now. This is from Azael, obviously one of the LCS casters. He said 10 LCS finals, 6 LCS championships, 4-time LCS MVP. Bjergsen has been the face of the LCS for so many years, and it's hard to imagine it without him. Known widely, one of the hardest working, most respected players, and someone who embodied being a true pro. I will miss watching him play. Here's a reaction from Doublelift, very interesting. When Doublelift told me, this is a tweet that he sent out just minutes ago. When Doublelift told me, I considered retiring alongside him for a week. Søren is one of the best players and people I've ever played with. The shoes will be tough to fill. So that's interesting, too, the fact that Doublelift, when he was told by Bjergsen, maybe it's my time to hang him up as well, but it sounds like Doublelift will continue, and until we hear otherwise, that will be with TSM. What do you make of Doublelift's reaction that he contemplated retirement and ride off into the sunset with Bjergsen as, the two biggest LCS faces of all time, both of them riding off on their horses into retirement?
It's wild. I don't think Doublelift will. Who knows at this point, Arda? I'm not gonna speak in speculation of I don't think it's gonna happen. Everything's open at this point, Arda. Doublelift might join, RNG for all I know. Like everything's open. This off season is going to be the craziest off season of all time, possibly. From what I'm hearing, from the rumors I'm hearing, and I don't want to speak them into existence right now. I want to vet them more. I've had some very good sources tell me some things, but I don't want to break up any discussions and offers that are currently going on. So I don't want to speak of them currently. But if 50% of what I'm hearing actually goes down, it's the wildest offseason of all time in terms of news. It's who knows what's going to happen. The crazy thing is TSM's going to have their third mid laner in existence. In a decade of being an organization, they're going to have their third starting mid laner. From Reggie to Bjergsen to who now? Who is it going to be?
Let's get to that in just a second. For those of you that are joining us, thank you for being here. Normally, this is a show dedicated to Worlds. It's called Wake Up Worlds. We've been doing it all month. We've been covering the 2020 League of Legends World Championship, and we will continue to do so. Tomorrow, after TES versus Suning, we will be live on the air at 11 Eastern, around that time after the press conferences conclude, to break down that semifinal matchup. And we will be live on Halloween, October 31st, in advance of the grand final at Worlds 2020. But this is monumental news, so we certainly had to pivot. Bjergsen has retired from active competition. He will now assume a coaching role with TSM. Before we get to the implications of TSM's roster and also what this means for free agency, because this absolutely does shake things up,
Yeah.
Tyler, I would like to address Bjergsen as a coach. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how well Bjergsen will fit into that role. How good of a coach do you think he'll be?
It's so tough to say, right? It's so tough to say. It's very similar to traditional sports, right? Where you have a genius like Larry Bird going to coaching, he does well. You have someone like Magic Johnson, a fellow genius, a top 5 NBA player of all time, terrible upper management person for the Lakers. He literally quit on his job randomly one day because he couldn't keep up with what was going on. Like, you can never really, you can't go, oh, he was an amazing player, so he's an amazing front office person, or he was an amazing player, so he's an amazing coach. I think he is intelligent enough. I think he's even keel enough. He has a lot of experience. I think he's someone who can relate to the players. I think he's gone through a lot in his life, being that 17-year-old lanky kid, anxiety-ridden, coming over from Denmark into a whole new world in Los Angeles, California, and kind of building his life here and overcoming and becoming a man here. I think he will be really able to sympathize and relate to the players, especially hopefully the young North American players coming up in the field. And I think another bonus that he has is that he's going to garner respect, Arda. And one of the biggest issues that I've heard in and out of North American coaching when it comes to League of Legends is that players don't respect their coaches all the time. That it's hard for a coach to gain the respect of their players when it comes to knowledge and when it comes to making calls and decision making and telling them what to do. Everyone's going to respect Bjergsen as a coach. He will show them his multitude of MVPs and trophies and say, "Sit down. He next mid laner of TSM. Next time those two have an argument, Bjergsen is just going to be like, I could take your job if I want to. Whoever you are, I will sit down right here and I will 1v1 you for your job." So I think he'll do well. It's very hard to say because you can never translate one to the other, but I think he's going to garner a lot of respect, and that's the first step into becoming a great coach, is for people to respect you.
Yeah.
And almost no player in the Western scene has as much respect as Bjergsen.
Yeah, he's one of the most respected League of Legends players anywhere in any region. So that is absolutely there. There is no doubt about that. And this comes with interesting timing, Tyler, because one of the things that we were speaking about on this program when TSM got eliminated, we weren't necessarily calling for the resignation of the coaching staff or anything like that, but we were questioning whether that might be a category that could change next season. Not predicting that it would happen, but certainly for many fans out there, that is one area that they were looking at and saying, maybe this will look different next season. And now that's exactly the case. So from the lens of, before we move on to free agency and TSM's roster, from that lens, the fact that now the roster, the coaching staff has changed and Bjergsen has come in, and now there will be changes there. Who knows what happens with the personnel there now that Bjergsen has been added? We haven't officially heard this. What do you think happens with the rest of the coaching staff?
Parth and Bjergsen have always had a close relationship. I think Parth coming back as a head coach was more of a request from Bjergsen and Doublelift than more than anything else. I think him coming back into that coaching role was him wanting, was Bjergsen and Doublelift wanting them as his coach, going back to that 2016-2017 heyday where they were at their peak of reputation and skill level. So I can very well see, Parth, going back into that GM role, leaving, Bjergsen as, the head coach. I think it'll be fine. I think he again, respected by everyone in the TSM organization. And I think Parth is someone who's shown to be flexible and very, very well adept at numerous roles in the organization of TSM. So I think overall, I think the coaching staff is going to shift, but I think they'll find the right places for all the people currently on staff. I don't think anyone's losing their job over this. I just think there'll be a reshuffling, and I think that's the best thing for this new generation of TSM.
More reactions from Twitter are pouring in. Cloud9 responded to the tweet with "one last ride. Can't Killian the Zillion." And you're seeing the video right now, by the way. This was posted by TSM, and Bjergsen tweeted it out only minutes ago. So this is very fresh news. Kobe says Bjergsen retiring is such a big hit to NA, one of our strongest mid laners, gone from competition and pushing the next generation. I have to say, though, I think he will make one amazing coach. Trust, experience, game knowledge, leadership, understanding player view. And so, as we mentioned, this is going to be a massive talking point for many, many, many days to come. And actually, one of our colleagues, Emily Rand, just tweeted. Let's read her tweet as well. I knew it was coming when it came, but the saddest retirement for me was KT Score. He always had, he was always there from the moment I got into watching LOL Esports at all, and had always been there as a constant. I imagine many NA fans will feel similarly about Bjergsen's retirement today. Yes, a very monumental moment in LCS and history. And also, it shakes up free agency in a massive way, because Tyler, there are some spicy mid laners out there that we have had our eye on and where they may or may not go. And now
Jensen?
TSM,
Jensen, is Jensen the answer now? Is it gonna be like, who knows?
What about Jensen? What about Chovy? What about other names? I'm just throwing them out there. Now I'm doing a little clickbait. Okay, I'll be honest. Now I'm throwing just a touch, just a little touch of clickbait.
It's not clickbait anymore. These are free agents. Chovy's being talked about.
I know. We talked about him likely staying in the LPL. I mean, they could talk. We don't know.
That's changed from things I've heard. It's not 100. My point of view of him 100% going to the LPL or LCK, that's changed a bit. I feel like NA is an option now. I feel like NA could be an option.
Okay, so let's broaden that conversation now. Bjergsen retires. TSM needs a mid laner. Okay, let's start there, and then let's talk about the rest of the roster. Who do you think the likely candidates could be that TSM, even if they haven't started talking to these players yet? I'm asking your opinion here, Tyler. I'm saying, okay, let's look at the landscape. Who, if you were in that TSM war room, who would you target? Who would be a great fit for TSM to succeed Bjergsen in that role? And what do you think TSM will do in order to get it done? Do you think they will look at an established star, or do you think they'll look for a youth movement?
There's two ways to go about this. If you're playing for unlimited money, if you want to go for the home run, if you want to go for the big bang, you go for a Chovy, you go for a Jensen, you look and you talk to Carlos to see what the perks cap situation might unfold to be. If one of those players wants to be, if they both want to be mid laners, maybe bring them over to TSM. But TSM has not always been the heavy spending org. They've been pretty tight when it comes to making all these splashy moves. They can often be outbid by some other orgs. They have the money if they want to, and they might want to because you are TSM, you are team solo mid. Mid lane has always been that position for you. You've only had 2 starter mid laners in your entire legacy with Reginald and Bjergsen, 2 Hall of Famers. You can talk about Reggie all you want in terms of his career, but he's a Hall of Famer, if not just for his career, but for what he has done for the entirety of his, going from rags to riches, making becoming a millionaire through his own devices, and really being, creating the biggest brand in North American esports. Reggie, Bjergsen, Jensen or a Chovy or a Perks or a Caps, that legacy continues on, and you have the TSM legacy, and it continues on being that high level TSM mid laner, you player in the mid. Or do you go for a young player? Do you have an Evolved or a Palafox or another a Saligo? Do you go for the youth movement? Do you go for a younger player either in North America or the European regional leagues that Bjergsen liked from Denmark or Sweden or something like that? And it's a very difficult decision, right? Where both options have their pros and cons. For me, though, TSM either has to go for the youth movement or they have to go for a home run. There's no doubles here. Do not go for a double. I love Jizuke. I think Jizuke is a good player, but don't go TSM Jizuke. You need a player that you can they have to be a focus for the next 2 to 5 years. This is a player that you have to believe in for the next 2 to 5 years, because I feel like the legacy of TSM mid lane is very important. It is important to uphold that legacy of that position on TSM, where it goes Reggie, Bjergsen, the next great star. And it could be an established player like Jensen or Chovy or whoever, or it could be a young player like Evolved who you truly believe in, or in a Blaze Olive in your organization who many people say is a player who is capable of going up to that next level. So for me, I want to see them not go for a double. Go for either believing in the future and go for a very young,
There's really two ways to go, right? Like, you're right. This might be a good opportunity to start a youth movement too.
Yeah.
The only sticking point to that is, if I'm reading Double Lift's tweet correctly, it sounds like he contemplated retirement, but it doesn't sound like he will retire. So if he were to part ways with TSM, that would either have to be a mutual thing, or TSM would have to just say, we're just going to clean slate and we're going to let Double Lift go. I honestly don't necessarily see that happening. It could happen, but I don't know.
Losing both faces? That's hard. Losing both faces of the franchise.
Losing
back
both
to
of
back?
them? Yeah. But then again, if there was ever a time,
if there was ever a
the
time,
youth movement,
yes,
now's the time. Clean slate, get the academy players, young players in there, adopt the Cloud9 model. You know, like, this might be the time to do that for TSM. Do you rebuild for a little while? Sure, but if there's ever a brand that is in that tier that could withstand that kind of rebuild and could stand to lose a couple of splits in order to get better, it's TSM.
With Coach Bjergsen, right? Like, the storyline of Coach Bjergsen, you know, ushering in the next generation of LCS stars, of, you know, going through his lumps, taking his lumps, you know, raising up these young players. I think, like, people would be invested in that. The TSM fans would be invested in that. They wouldn't quit on, you know, Coach Bjergsen and training the next stars of the LCS. But I do agree. It either has to be the youth movement of untested rookies who are or an untested rookie of who you believe could be the next Bjergsen or Reginald of that mid lane, of the dynastic mid laner, or you just go for the home run and you go for a Chovy or Jensen, or, you know, a Perks or Caps or whoever you can get at that level. There's no in between for me. You cannot go for a double. A double here, I feel like it's the worst of both worlds. You don't get either advantage or the pros of either going for the home run and contending instantly, or going for the youth movement and you're able to rebuild at the only time in your history that you'll be able to rebuild with Bjergsen retiring. So I don't want a double. I don't want a single. I don't want a triple. I either want you to play it. I want you to either play it, you know, the long game, strike out a few times, you know, get your reps in, or go for the homer. Nothing in between.
So there are a lot of people responding to this, understandably. One of them is Deficio, who just tweeted an unbelievable picture. I threw it in chat. He's obviously the director of EU for Misfits right now. But look at, just please click on the tweet and look how young Bjergsen looks in this picture. So the tweet says, it's a long time ago, but I still can't believe how much has changed since 2013. We'll always be proud of you and your fantastic career. My goodness, like, it's so crazy, Tyler, to think that Bjergsen is only 24.
Yep.
And already he's had a storied career where talking about retirement does not seem out of place, and he's already transitioning to a different role. It's unbelievable.
Do you know notice another person in that picture who's pretty familiar for the LCS fans?
Please regale us.
On the far left, it's Sven Skaren. That's young Sven Skaren over there.
Oh my gosh.
It's young Sven Skaren.
I would not have, what?
That's young
I would not have recognized, wow. To be fair, I wouldn't have recognized Bjergsen either. I mean, look how young they both look. Oh my gosh.
It's such a weird and wacky time. We talked about today, like, before the Bjergsen retirement came in, it feels like the end of a generation for Western League of Legends. It feels like a chapter is closed with G2 losing today. Now Bjergsen retired. Free agency in this next 2021 year, who knows? I feel like
I can't wait.
It feels like a new shift is coming, like how South Korea had their shift a few years ago after Afrika Freaks lost to Cloud9, and South Korea got eliminated before the semifinals at Worlds 2018 in their home country. And 2019 was kind of the next generation of South Korean esports or League of Legends, with Damwon coming in and Griffin, ascending or getting that ascent to one of the top teams in the world, and Sandbox Gaming coming in. I feel hopefully 2021 will be a new generation for Western stars and new Western super teams and new Western talent, because I thought there'd be less movement because of COVID. I really did. I thought there'd be less money thrown around. I thought there'd be more sheepish owners when it came to spending cash. But seems like that's the opposite. It seems like it's be a crazy season this time, Arda. And with TSM lacking a mid laner, we're gonna have a new mid laner for TSM. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, even though Bjergsen was gonna have to retire one day, you always kind of felt he would always be the mid laner. You always would think he would be that bearded, smiling mid laner in those team pictures as the mid laner. Now he's gonna be the coach behind the mid laner, and whoever that mid laner is gonna have a lot to live up to. So that's why it has to be either a young player that people realize is going to take time, or it's going to have to be a home run who exceeds instantly. It cannot be a known player who is only going to be average or might get you to the playoffs, but is not going to get you to the World Championship. So it has to be a big name or a small name, no in between.
So we're going to have so much more to talk about from this subject and free agency, which seems to be already cooking hot, and it's going to get only hotter as we approach that middle of November timeframe. We will have a ton of coverage. We will have a ton of content for you, whether it's on our YouTube channel /ESPN Esports, live content here on Twitch, as well written at espn.com/esports. If I may, before we move on to our other semifinal matchup at Worlds. Yes, by the way, we are in the middle of Worlds. As we just spent the last half an hour talking about Bjergsen. I just want to do one thing for Reddit, if that's okay with you.
No, go for it.
I just want now, for all of you watching, you will know that I am simply doing this for Reddit. I am simply doing this for clicks, and I want someone to take this clip out of context. So do not clip this part as part of the clip, okay? Everyone knows this. Whoever's going to clip it for Reddit, only clip the part that I'm about to say. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Tyler, it is 100% a guarantee that there are only 3 names to replace Bjergsen at mid lane for TSM. You got Jensen, you got Caps, and you got Chovy. One of those 3 will be wearing the black and white in the LCS next season, and you can book it. And cut.
Clip it and ship it, people. Clip it and ship it.
Thank you.
It's
just that.
Hey, here's the thing. A few weeks ago, you were the one who brought up the Bjergsen retirement storyline when no one else was. You were the first one to kind of sniff it out when it felt like that felt clickbaity. Somehow, one of those 3 players now is going to become the TSM mid laner. Like,
and
you were the prophet.
They do.
Yeah, you're the prophet. You're the prophet. You're the clickbait prophet. You're clickbait. You're the clickbait. You're the clickbait prophet.
I'm okay with it.
Your clickbait lines turn into reality. So I'm looking forward to either TSM Jensen, TSM Chovy, or TSM Caps.
Click it and ship it. I love it. All right, let's get to our other semifinal at World. So remember, for those of you that are just joining us, we will be live tomorrow after TES versus Suning. This is a very interesting matchup, people. This is a very fun one. TES, on paper, the favorites on many people's scorecards to win Worlds 2020. Sure, they've had their stumbles here and there, but they're still a very, very formidable, strong team, and some would still say the strongest at Worlds. Some might say Damwon is that case, but we might be on a collision course there. Suning, the underdog, a David versus Goliath story, if you will, at least if you're looking at Worlds, Tyler. But Suning have a real chance here against TES. What do you make of this matchup?
My brain's still befuddled from the Bjergsen news, but this is still going to be a banger of a matchup. It's always, I mean, the Damwon versus G2 series did not live up to expectations. Damwon was just the far better team. And even though I do believe TS is the far better team to Suning on paper from 1 to 5, they outclass Suning. It's an LPL versus LPL matchup, which means it's going to be muddy. They're going to get to the mud. They're going to get into the dirt, and they're going to box it out. They're going to have a bar brawl throughout Summoner's Rift. It's an LPL special. Whenever 2 LPL teams meet at the highest level of League of Legends at the World Championship in a best of 5, it's kind of a sworn oath between the teams that you must just brawl to the end. And in this series, I do think Suning do have their openings. Huang Feng is going to have another career day in the bomb lane. I do not think Jackie Love will have 2 bad best of 5s in a row. Bin's going to have to be on point. I don't think they're going to give him the gangplank over and over and over. I don't think TS is going to allow that. They're either going to pick it away or ban it. I think we're going to force them on different avenues to kind of lead from. And also, I think it comes down to TS bothering SOFM. If SOFM can have free reign over the jungle, if he can counter jungle be that bully in the jungle that he has been in the group stages versus G2, Team Liquid, and the quarterfinals versus JD Gaming, and kind of get his way and get into that 20-30 CS plus differential at 10 to 15 minutes, Suning can win. They can win this 3-1, 3-2. But I do think TS is just too talented. I think overall they know what Suning's good at. I think they know their win condition is through the top side of the map of SOFM and Bin. And I think TS will shut it down. They'll win 3-1.
So again, that's going to happen on Sunday, and we will be live right afterwards here on Twitch and YouTube on ESPN Esports. I would normally ask you, Tyler, for some final thoughts, but I think we've given like 100 final thoughts on
2-hour show. Who's going to retire tomorrow, Arda? Who's going to retire tomorrow? Is Double Lift going to change his mind? Be like, I'm retiring too.
Yep, absolutely. Double Lift is going to retire. Jensen's retiring. Tactical's going to decide he's going to become a coach too. You know what? I've had a great year. My rookie year was terrific. I went to Worlds. I'm retiring too. Core JJ is going to go to the LCK.
Yeah.
What else? What other things could possibly happen?
Chovy's going to NA. Perks is going to go to Overwatch
Chovy's going to NA. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah, that's going to be the shocker. Impact is going to go to Overwatch League. It's going to be the first one to go to OWL instead of all those players going to other teams or other leagues. Yeah, exactly.
It's wild times. It's crazy times. Somehow, some way, North America was the last talking point of Worlds for the Western teams. G2, on the day G2 loses, the day that G2 gets clapped out of the tournament in the fastest game ever, and they are the last impression we're going to have of the Western team at Worlds, Bjergsen and TSM say, not so fast. Not so fast, fellas. And they take over the news cycle on the day that G2 gets clapped out of Worlds. So I can't wait for free agency, Arda. Our show might have to be 40 hours at this rate, because if more of these signings happen, if more of these retirements happen, if how much shuffling might be going on behind the scenes, it's about to be the wacky season. But first, we still have to crown a world champion. 3 teams are left: Suning, TS, and Damwon. A final to remember, hopefully to be had. Damwon might just 3-0. Who knows at this point? They might just be by far the best team, but I'm still hoping out hope for a non-3-0 final.
Yes.
That's all I care about anymore. Just give me a 3-1 final. Don't even need a 3-2, Arda. Don't even need a 3-2. Just give me a 3-1 final and I'll be happy. Just no 3-0s. No 3-0s.
We are certainly on the path to that. We will see you tomorrow. Good vibes and acts of kindness. And hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
TSM finally got a dub at Worlds.
Oh, no.
Bye,
everyone. No!